Greetings and welcome to the Pure Report. I'm your host, Rob Ludeman, and it is time to bring the orange. Coming up on today's episode, we are going to dig in to some of the latest trends around virtualization, what our enterprise is doing. And I'm pleased to introduce as well someone who is in day 12, but was living the VMware and the Broadcom transition the last 10 years and just joined Everpure. It's Ernie China. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to join you today.
You're very bold on day 12 to jump in here, but we had such a couple good chats, and the timing is great with VMware Explore coming up that I thought it was a good chance to get you in here and introduce you to everybody.
This is perfect. You catch me when I'm still fresh coming in.
Yeah,
with some fresh perspective.
We haven't beaten you down yet. We haven't tired you out. And again, for everybody joining as the product marketing director covering virtualization broadly, but you come to us from a long and storied marketing career, but also the last 10 years at VMware and Broadcom. What was that like for you?
That was great. It was awesome. I love the team. I love the solution out there, and we had a great run. I was brought over to VMware when we had launched HCI vSAN, and I came over from NetApp, so I was bringing some of the storage expertise to help them get that, especially with sales and partners, to get that totally adopted into and activated within the partner base, which was a lot of fun. It was a great ride. We went from basically being kind of in the other category to being leaders in that space.
It was like a niche thing to like everybody's using
everybody was using it,
right?
And we were working with partners like Dell to be able to get VxRail going, and we were working also at some point had such success that we ended up taking over the VCF solution as well. So it was a great ride. Really, really loved it. Great experience.
And then you landed here. What opened your eyes about this opportunity?
I was just kind of looking around for other opportunities, and I started to take a look at Everpure and just loved what I saw, right? So I ended up interviewing with quite a few folks here and loved the people, loved the culture, which was great. I think a great opportunity. There's a lot of customers out there, I think, that are looking at options right now. I think Everpure, from a data management standpoint, has an amazing value proposition for those customers as they start to look at a lot of the changes that have happened and how they transition to kind of that next stage. So I thought it was a great opportunity. And in general, I was just really excited to come over once I got a chance to see what Everpure had.
It's a strong foundational solution entry point for us, right? I mean, going way back to the beginning of flash and storage and our flash array solution, it was really, we do amazing things for databases, right? Which need speed and need consistent performance. And then we do really great things for the virtualization ecosystem. Initially, a lot of it was VDI and avoiding boot storms and doing things for the VMware VDI solution and for Citrix. And then people, this whole virtualization thing blew up, and you joined there probably about 2014, 2015. As you said, it was very much going from a nascent thing to maturing really quickly to the point where, and I was joking with you about this the other day when we were talking, it's like, I was a different company at that time. I go and go, what operating system do you guys run, to the IT team? And they would say, well, we're a VMware shop. And I go, is that an operating system?
I don't have to worry about that. It's abstracted.
I'm used to like Unixy things, but that was the layer where they were working.
So they didn't have to worry about all that stuff. Yeah, it was pretty amazing.
It was amazing. And that was the layer they were working, but now, things have changed.
It was a lot of fun going out to explore and meeting a lot of the technical folks that were out there and saying, hey, I built my career around this. Was an amazing kind of experience as I kind of started my career working with VMware. So it's a lot of fun, basically, seeing how kind of VMware impacted so many people out there. Yeah,
I mean, it was great for us, and kind of the message, and we'll get through that in this episode as well, is we are still fully invested in the VMware ecosystem, right? VCF, 9.1, the other pieces, and we have been for a long time. But the reality is things have changed, and we're going to dig into some of the data points that we've pulled from this state of virtualization survey. But a high percentage of enterprises out there saw the contract changes from Broadcom and said, well, we're gonna look to go a different direction. What was it like on the inside? A few years ago when those transitions were happening.
So it's interesting, right? So we had the Broadcom acquisition. Some pretty significant changes that happened at the product level. So a lot of rationalization of the product to only a few products, which was a big change. Rationalization of the partners, both the channel partners and other partners that we had, so the fewer partners, and a lot of changes throughout. It wasn't really and I'll kind of talk through that here in a minute, but it wasn't really just a pricing issue. It was just a series of a lot of changes that impacted customers' environment, whether they were large or small, medium or small, that were not really something that was probably communicated clearly or with a lot of time for customers to be able to make adjustments for that.
Yeah, some of it happened really fast,
very
right? It's just
fast.
like, okay, here's your renewal.
And by the way, some things change and they change
Yeah.
back too. And so, I mean, customers like predictability,
Sure.
especially when it comes to their budgets. They also like to make sure they understand kind of how that's going to impact their environments. Because everybody says, well, like for instance, there's multiple ways customers could go based on this. But even if they stay with VMware, it also is impacting them from a change perspective. And so I think all in all, it's really just, it was a lot of turmoil initially. I think most of the customers at this point have kind of made decisions about at least moving from where they were to, which was basically perpetual license to subscription, but they're still in the process of deciding what they're kind of what they're going to do moving forward. Because I think it continues to be a point of discussion within those customers about whether they continue to stay. And you'll see from some of what we got in the study, trying to make decisions on what they're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, I saw this last year at a number of user group events that we were hosting that my team was running with the field, and where we had this modern virtualization topic. And it really was two camps, right? It was those that just said, yeah, we're moving on and we're figuring that out. Anybody else move to this, move to that, let me know what you think. And then the others said, look, we're just going to turn the crank one more time and then try to figure it out, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a 2 to 3 year time horizon, it feels, where a number of organizations have just said, okay, we've got this investment, we've been building this for 10 years, right? And now we're going to just move forward and then kind of take our time and figure things out. And, to no surprise, like these sessions at our events, right, field events and accelerate events have been really, really popular.
Yes.
Both the ones where we're talking about our continued investment with VCF and with VMware native technologies, but also some of the other directions. So you're probably seeing that same thing too.
Same thing, yeah. So, like I said, I think it's like 30% of the folks are deciding, given the study, have decided to stay. That means that they basically made a decision to continue with virtualization and are considering how much, because now they have to buy the full VCF stack.
It's the full. It's not the piecemeal pick.
So
what
there's
you
a
want to
difference
use.
between saying, "Hey, I have to move because that's the only way it's offered," or maybe vSphere VVF, right, which is the other alternative if they're basically taking a stair step. But if they basically want to go to VCF, they buy the whole thing, and now the discussion is, okay, so how much of this am I going to actually adopt? And if they do adopt the storage, some of the other pieces of it, the AI, all the other pieces that are included on there, it does mean that they're going to have to disrupt something else they may be already using, right? So I think that's one thing is they moved to subscription versus perpetual. Now the question is how much are they going to adopt, right? And where, and what kind of disruption is that going to mean in their environment moving forward as well?
Yeah, it's like the TV packages that we have, right? I mean, there's a bunch of channels I don't actually watch and don't ever use, but I have to subscribe and buy the whole thing.
Yeah,
right?
I think the implication is most customers are going to be in this transitional phase for a while, trying to figure out whether they go all in and how much of that they'll do. Some of them are going to be having a lot of these modern applications like containers, like AI and so forth, and how much of that are they going to put on the VCF estate versus what they might do differently, right?
Yeah.
So I think they're going to be living with this transition for a bit. I think the ask is how can vendors help me make this more predictable, more consistent, a safer, and how do they de-risk some of this for me, right? I think that's where Everpure has an amazing value proposition for them, at least on the data management side.
Yeah, and the data management becomes really critical, and I think we hit that stat. Well, let me get to a couple of the stats, because this is something that we ran last year, so it's still somewhat fresh, right? We're skinning it a little bit right now for people that want to go look at it for it. It's a 2025 State of Virtualization report. Over 500 people responded, and also, interestingly, these are sizable companies in terms of revenue and quantities of people. So 72% did see cost increases higher than expected. And you kind of gave a nod to that. And then you gave that 30%. So that's 69% sharing that they were planning a migration as a result of the cost increase, but also other factors. I don't think it's entirely a cost thing,
I mean,
right?
I think some people might already know this because it's been out there for a bit, but basically this is what kind of how the customers kind of went through that process,
Yeah.
right? So they were buying perpetual licenses. Basically, all they were doing was paying VMware for support because basically they own these licenses, and as new versions of the software came out, they wouldn't have to pay more. They would just pay for support. So it wasn't like there was a huge hike in price.
It's a business model change.
It was a business model change where, to some degree, they were getting an amazing deal.
Right, right.
Right. And now, basically, because Broadcom came in and says, we can't support this. If we're going to continue to invest, we need to be able to make sure that we're making enough to be able to reinvest in the product and, obviously, and all the other things you need to do to keep that going. So basically what happened was it was a surprise to customers because all of a sudden, if they had budgets for that year, this was significantly, for some, especially the larger customers, they may have gotten discounts and so forth to be able to make them whole. But in many cases, especially for mid-sized and maybe smaller customers, they saw a pretty significant increase in their budget that they weren't ready for. So it was really that surprise that impacted them. When they went back and looked at other vendors as alternatives, in many cases they saw that if they bought new licenses from them, this was comparable.
It's kind of a wash.
It was a wash. Some of them were less,
Yeah.
some of them were more, depending on which. By the way, some of them also didn't have a lot of the capabilities, the ecosystem, the features as well. So it wasn't a simple black and white, hey, I'm going to go to something better because it's cheaper. It really was more, I'm less comfortable with the approach Broadcom is taking with us because this was a really big surprise and we weren't giving a lot of notice. And it's a trust issue, it's a partnership issue, and then it opened them up to looking at, I'm a little too invested.
Yeah.
Right? Putting all my eggs in this basket. I think those were some of the issues on our channel front. It was also the fact that many of them took the brunt of this as they went out and started to deal with these customers at renewal time.
From a relationship standpoint.
They were getting an earful. In many cases, they were the tip of the spear that had to handle it. In many cases, they felt like also they were kind of surprised as well. Not to mention the fact that if the customer was very upset and the customer was saying, hey, I need to go look at other options, that a lot of the partners told me, hey, I'm having to spend time going through and evaluating these other options, a lot of times without actually getting paid for that.
Yeah, right.
And so it's costing me profit and margin having to do all this. I'm not getting anything for it, right? So for them, their business was impacted as well. So all along, a lot of turmoil and a lot of kind of angst and headaches for a lot of customers as they're going through the process. Once they move to the new model, I think they're fine from that. No longer becomes the issue. But then what still remains is, again, do I want to put all my eggs in this basket moving forward? Is this something that will continue? Am I going to have this happen again later on?
Yeah, because you want the stability for that. But at the same time, what comes up also is making that transition requires certain things.
Yes.
Because you have invested in this skill set and you've got a team that's very well versed in the features. You also mentioned some of the features. Not quite the same, alternative hypervisors.
Definitely.
They're trying
Microsoft,
to catch up. Right,
comparable ecosystem is comparable. Nutanix has, maybe less of the things in certain areas, and then you go to things like Portworx, right?
Yeah.
Or these others, and all of a sudden you're having to handle a lot more yourself.
Yeah.
A lot less. It depends on which way you go, but all of them had implications, right?
Yeah. Or what you want to take on, right? Because we have had customers that have jumped into something like a Proxmox, right?
Yes.
Where it is very old school, open sourcey, you're kind of on your own.
Yes.
But it was just the decision they made and they just took it on and they're figuring it out, right? They're making it work for them. So it really is a case by case type of thing.
A lot of disruption, definitely a lot of disruption and a lot of, like I said, I think folks are going to be going through that transition for a while.
We covered really well the kind of where we are right now. We did see a lot of excitement. A lot of people come to the VCF 9.1 session at Accelerate, probably one of the top 5 attended sessions. And we've got, folks like Alex Carber and Matt Webb, who I'm going to be having on this program in a couple weeks. So that'll debut before the VMworld announcement. Are these the folks that are deciding to move forward, right? These are the ones who have said, okay, we understand the adjustments, we understand the change in the licensing, we understand we're using the whole thing, and now we're trying to figure out how we actually utilize.
Either the whole thing or parts of the thing.
Parts of it,
Because maybe they might do storage, they might do some of this, not all of it, but regardless, they're looking at how they move forward, right? And like I said, great, those sessions that they'll have at Explore are a great way for them to be able to see where Everpure can help. right,
Yeah.
in that transition.
Yeah, and so for folks listening that are going to VMware Explorer, set up a meeting, right? So we'll have experts that are there. Great opportunity to meet with our experts that are working day to day on this, and still in really close partnership with VMware. Yet let's go a little bit into that alternative hypervisor category, because the survey that we ran last year, 30% are exploring other areas. They're looking at the Hyper-V, they're looking at Nutanix AHV, Proxmox. There's a few others out there that are a little bit less mainstream or open source types of things. Or if, Simon were here, he'd be, I don't know if you know Simon yet, but Simon will be pushing OpenStack, right? At it. He's the big OpenStack advocate that we have. What have you seen?
So really maybe taking a step back a little bit. So I think there's different paths, right? So path one is I'm going to stay with VMware. Right. So I'm going to stick with VCF. How do I do this, and how much of that do I do, right? So that's one. The other one is I'm going to basically go to the cloud. I don't want to deal with this, right? I'm just going to go ahead and go to a hypervisor, and they're basically, go to a cloud vendor that's going to help me with all this, right? That's two. That has its implications and costs, right?
Yeah.
But that, to some degree, maybe makes it a lot simpler for them to be able to change, right? The third one is I'm going to change hypervisors. I'm going to go to, like we talked about, Microsoft. I'm going to go to Nutanix.
But staying on-prem, ultimately.
Staying on-prem, but I'm going to change that hypervisor, which then has a lot of migration challenges, and also support. What is their ecosystem like, and what does it support? But that would be a third one. And the fourth one is maybe looking at it and saying, I'm just going to go to a container-based approach, right, versus a VM. I'm going to move away from VMs, right? Can't do it right away, but going to Red Hat, some of the things that we have with Portworx, for instance, that's an option for them to be able to have a more kind of modern workload approach, right, to be able to manage this and being able to do your containers as well as VMs, but doing it from a container perspective versus doing it from VCS perspective, which is managing it from a VM kind of approach, right, as far as management. So my sense is those are really kind of four big paths customers can take. The great news is Everpure has ability to be able to support the customer and de-risk that, make it consistent when they make those changes, regardless of those. I think we're unique in that way, that I think probably the only data management company that has the ability to do that across any of those choices for customers.
Yeah, it's a really strong foundation, and there's investment in all those areas. I mean, when I came in and I was doing database marketing, I kind of inherited the Microsoft ecosystem. And at that time in 2018, there was a lot of business attached to Hyper-V. It was just one of those things that would show up on the sales reports. Obviously not at the same level of everything that we were doing in the VMware ecosystem, but it was definitely there, and it was probably more akin to the Microsoft shops that we would see. The Nutanix one certainly is very intriguing, because I look at what we're doing, and I've hosted our Cody Hosterman and their VP of product on here, and you can see strategically we're trying to build and engineer in similar fit and function, right? And we're not going to get there overnight, but if you have a bunch of people that are really familiar working in the VMware space, how can you go and build a solution that's close to good enough, but that has the same ways of operating that those folks are familiar with, right? Try to reduce some of that burden.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think Microsoft, you hit it on the head. If that one's kind of big company, big ecosystem. And by the way, if you're totally bought into the Microsoft kind of world already,
the whole thing, right?
Then hey, it's an easy switch for you to be able to move that way. That's one. Like you said, the second one's Nutanix. Nutanix probably has more of a strategy like VMware from a kind of private cloud approach and the way they're running it. There's a migration that needs to happen to make it easy to migrate, or they're trying to make it easy for folks to migrate over. There is some challenges with the ecosystem and how much of that they cover, especially some of the backup vendors out there, and what's supported and what's not. So, and processes are very different. So, but that's another option. And then if someone really wants to cut out the cost and wants to handle a lot of that support and a lot of the, someone like Proxmox, which by the way is coming up for small customers, even big customers that want to kind of take that all over and really kind of get off the whole licensing thing. That's another option, or some of these other open source guys that are out there. Any one of those, I think, are options for customers, depending on what their how much pain they want to deal with from a migration, and how much they want to take on support. versus kind of what they had before. So any one of those is a good option, I think, for a customer, depending on what their needs are.
To what extent are you seeing dual kind of strategies, right? Because there's a scenario
in
almost every case, right? Because there's a scenario where you say, all right, we're gonna take what's really important and let's call it production, for lack of a better term, and we're just gonna keep that on our VMware estate, right?
Yeah.
And we'll go off and do that. We have all these non-prod things where maybe we don't need. And again, I come from database world, and that was very much okay, we're going to use the really expensive Oracle prod for this because we know it delivers all the ilities, right? The availability, the serviceability, the reliability, all those things. And then we have these open source databases where we just need to play around and do dev tests. So that seems to be prominent.
It's going to be, as I said, that transition's happening for all. It's basically customers are going to be trying different things, and they're going to have different things in their environment for a while. I don't think there's a simple, easy, I'm just switching and I'm taking everything over. In most cases that I've heard, right? And most of them are going to have a mixed environment.
Well, and the container thing was interesting because we've been talking about that for a while, and I feel like that was something that was just gaining momentum and happening anyway, right? So then to have this event, which maybe sped up people's consideration of, okay, well, I'm just going to go containerize my VM estate, and hey, there's something called Portworx, right? That partners really well with KubeVirt options out there to do this. We're seeing a lot of momentum there, but I feel like that one was already happening, right?
Yeah.
The containers were already seeing like really rapid adoption for a lot of reasons.
I think containers kind of were already happening. A lot of our big customers, the VMware customers, had both. VMs and the Red Hat, right? They had, especially the larger ones. This really kind of prompted them saying, "Hey, do I want to have a container-led approach?"
Yeah, that is different.
That is different, approach,
sure.
Right? And do I want to manage this under the container kind of viewpoint versus the VM approach? And so I think that's what's been kind of happening. But just like in any transition, probably if you looked at all the major transitions, I don't think everyone's going to take all their VMs and switch them over.
Yeah,
they're probably going to take a look at all new type of workloads. They're going to say, yes, I'm going to move. Those are all now going to be container based, right? And then they're going to look at their VMs and say, hey, some of these may be something I might want to refactor and move over.
Yeah.
And some of these are ones that doesn't make sense for us to do that. We'll keep them. So like we said before, there's going to be a mix for a while. And maybe more and more of that strategy will be go to containers for those folks that decide to do that. But you're still going to have VMs in their environment.
Well, that's part of what we chatted about the other day was your emphasis around trying to look more at a business-led decision there, right? Like we get all caught up in the technology and it does this and it does that and the different features, but really it's like, okay, what are you trying to accomplish? Like what is the app that you're running or what is the workload? What is the service? What's the right solution for how
What's
you
the
want
cost
to run
benefit analysis for when what I move and what I keep where it is? And then the real question is then how do I manage that as a whole moving forward in the most efficient way? Right, and customers have to make that decision between maybe the VCF approach or maybe a container-led approach, as we talked about.
Yeah, and we've had some really strong advocates for the container approach at our Accelerate events the last couple of years. We had SiriusXM on main stage. That was a great one for folks to go back and watch if they're looking. And then we had CSX, right, the transportation company railroad that were on stage and in a breakout, and they were strong advocates of that approach and demonstrated what it had done for their environment. Like they went all in, which was great. But they were also really sensitive to talking about the migration. We did a lot of tuning of abstracts and things because they didn't want to come right out and go, we're bolting from VM. It was we're adopting this containerized approach for KubeVirt and moving VMs in, but it sounded like they still had some of the real estate, to your point about that duality that happens.
If you think about it, most sellers, most channel partners, most partners in general are going to want to make sure that they're helping customers make a very deliberate, careful decision and take the right approach based, like you said, on business as well as technical, decisions, right? Make sure they're making the right choice and they're doing it in the right way so that at the end, the last thing they want is to have any disruption or any issues at the customer side, right? So my sense is that there's going to be more and more of those customers, by the way, I think, as they start looking at more and more of their environments being more focused on modern applications versus what they did before and taking a more modern approach to virtualization, more modern approach to their environment. But I would say that it has to be very carefully managed and deliberate. And again, Everpure has a great value prop to help customers through that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So kind of to wrap we've gone through the various options, which is great, and I love getting your perspectives and insights, particularly as guy from the inside. Kind of pull out your crystal ball. We won't hold you to this, right? We won't come back in a few years, but over the next 2 to 3 years, what are some things that you think might happen? Like what's the possibilities?
I'm going to just kind of maybe focus it on us. I really do think that today, and that storage is separate from the discussion around virtualization, usually, right? It's kind of a separate thing. And storage to some degree happens later, and a lot of times, in many cases, maybe isn't seen as strategic, right? So I do think, and we actually see it in the study come up, right, with some customers, and I think it's going to come up more and more. I do think a lot of customers are going to start to consider the data management implications of any changes they make up front. And that means, I think, us on the Everpure side is one of the things I'm excited about being able to help out here is how do we elevate the discussion and make sure all customers are saying, hey, I need to think about my data. I need to think about how it's protected, how it's stored through all these transitions, how I make it most efficient, and how I make sure it gives the right amount of performance to my applications. Need to really think through that. And by the way, how regardless of any way I go, right, along this kind of journey, that I'm covered, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that, for me, crystal ball is something that's going to become a hotter topic for customers. And it's an area, I think, where Everpure can really step in and help. And so we need to elevate this discussion and talk about how we fit into that discussion. Again, we're moving from this idea that we're just an amazing enterprise storage solution to really a data management solution. And this transition, really, they need to consider that. Customers need to consider that as they go through that.
Yeah, the survey was very powerful on this one, right? Where we snuck in a question just around, the perception around importance of data management, and 94%, right, of those 500 people plus that were surveyed either strongly agreed or somewhat agreed, basically a ranking of a 4 or 5. That data management was critical to this discussion.
I mean, if you think about it, like I said, you need to protect it. There's security issues, there's performance issues, there's efficiency, there's management. I mean, there are a lot of your challenges are going to happen if you don't manage that properly, and obviously that your data is critical, right? So anyway, I think at the end of the day, that's where crystal ball, I see that becoming more and more important.
I like that. Yeah, and kind of left out there for us to ponder is the data intelligence, the one-touch acquisition as well, right? If we start,
I think it falls right into it.
Context and things.
Well, if you think about it, if you get to that first stage, which is you get through this, right, and data management gets elevated, and folks are looking at that in a different way, then you start thinking, what else can I do? Right, and this fits right in, I think.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Thanks for all the perspectives.
Yeah.
Really great. You ready to do kind of a hot takes kind of thing?
Sure, why not?
Let's do it. Let's dive in. So I do these rapid fire segments with every guest, right? And I tune them a little bit depending on who it is. And they're pretty friendly. I previewed a little bit since you're in day 12. And maybe this is something you call back to, what we've already talked about, but what's an area around virtualization that you think IT leaders are maybe missing out on right now or have a blind spot?
That's kind of what we talked about earlier. I think it really is the idea that data management storage is going to become very important in this transition, in this time of lots of changes that are going on, and they need to take it. I think they need to elevate that discussion and have it earlier. In most cases, I think a lot of customers are making the decision on kind of these renewals for 180 days before all this, and then storage is even after that. So the idea here is this probably needs to be elevated in that discussion earlier. I think that's a key one. Yeah,
and we're trying to do that in the database space too, right? Because we have all these database transitions to new versions. Oracle 26 AI rolling out, and it's okay. Well, great, you can go adopt that fancy new database with all the bells and whistles and features, but what's it pulling data from? Like, is that ready to take advantage of?
If you stair-step it too much with individual pieces, you can get stuck, right? Because you didn't think through kind of with the implications earlier, right? So that, I think that from my perspective, that's a big one.
Yeah, I had an old boss who used to say you can't put a Ferrari engine into a Volkswagen Beetle. That was one of his lines. I mean, that's kind of, again, that's a little more hardware infrastructure centric, but it's along those lines. Like it just won't do it for you. Okay, I ask this. And I usually have guests that are IT sysadmin kind of folks who, did horrible things in a data center or blew away an index or something. From a marketing perspective, do you have any story over the past where there was anything kind of funny or a blunder that you can call upon, just sort of like, oh my gosh, that got messed up.
Yeah, so I'm thinking marketing campaign thing because that comes to mind right now. So we ended up doing, the Broadcom acquisition came. There was all this kind of angst around cost and budgets and so forth, and we teamed up with Intel to basically say, hey, let's hit a lot of our customers and talk about how if they basically bring in VMware and some of the latest and greatest new hardware from Intel, right? Customers can actually save money because they basically buy less cores, right?
Yeah.
And so Intel invested a lot of money, right? We had this campaign with it was a partner element to it, so it was actually kind of a pretty big push right off the bat. What we found out afterwards, because we were seeing VMware was getting a lot of play, but Intel wasn't. And this goes back to my original comment. A lot of times the hardware, you don't, if you actually ended up going with the latest subscription, you didn't have to change your hardware.
It didn't matter.
Yeah, the refresh happened after the fact. So after all that investment with Intel, they weren't getting a lot of play on the hardware. We were getting way more on the software. So that was kind of a misperception of kind of how these things work together. So we had to shift that campaign later on to be more on the storage side because those tend to be more lined up. Usually when you're going to get HCI, vSAN, it has to have some purpose-built servers for the performance and all that kind of stuff. So at the end, we had to kind of shift it. But I would say that would be kind of learn something as we went through that process that we probably need to take into account also the kind of the selling motions and buying motions on the customer.
It's always hard with the Intel MDF, right? Because it's always there, right? I mean, we were doing something with SAP workloads at one point, and they came to us and said, "Oh, that's a space that we want to invest in." And so we're like, "Okay, great." Although it usually comes with a whole bunch of requirements and things that you have to do for them and with them.
There was a lot of excitement around this whole big transition, and so there wasn't as many of those. So at the end, that's why it was kind of costly, right? For them, and that I think they weren't getting the ROI that they were looking for right off the bat.
Yeah.
And we caught it early, so that was good, but had to make adjustments.
Well, that gives people a little bit of the inside mind into campaigns anyway, right? You think something, you go run it, you evaluate it after 3-6 months, and okay, we can make a little change or a little tweak here to make it perform a little bit better.
That's correct. Yeah,
always iterating. Always iterating.
Yeah.
Last one. Go back 10, 20 years, couple decades or so, either the best advice you ever got or something you wish you knew or that you had spent more time learning.
Yeah, kind of when I started, this was at HP, right? When I started, the big push for me, or the thing that I was really excited about was product management, actually.
Yeah.
Launching new products, kind of defining features, working with engineering, a lot of fun. And I was kind of along that path, and I was doing really well there. And then I remember I had gotten to a point where one of the executives said, Ernie, we have a gap here. We need to take some of what you've done on the product management side. I want to take some of that kind of thinking and some of that discipline and apply it to how we go after the channel for our. This was server solutions.
Yeah.
Then we're selling this. I don't know if you remember the NetServer line back when before Compact.
I'm a server guy.
This is NetServer.
Old
this is a while ago.
Okay,
right?
all right.
But anyway, the one thing he said is, I want you to help kind of drive the channel effort for this, right? And I was thinking, channel, partners. That wasn't even in my mindset, and I really kind of went, I don't know about this, right? It's going to really deviate from where I'm going. And he kept saying, hey, look, it helps you broaden your experience.
For sure.
It's not going to take you away. If you want to come back, you can, but I really need you. We need your help here. Actually, it was great advice. By going that direction, it not only gave me an appreciation of the ecosystem, but it really had me thinking not just products and kind of from a vendor view, but really the whole selling motion and go-to-market motion you need to have to be successful, and all the touch points you need to have to make sure the product gets to market in the right way, right? So for me, that was really, really good advice, and I would say it really kind of ended up expanding my career and enhancing it quite a bit. In the next, as I went to NetApp, as I went, to VMware, it really, really was a big additional skill set that I think has helped me out quite a bit.
Yeah, I encourage people younger in their careers to look to the channel, maybe look to the partner side, but just understand all the different steps and all the touch points that go into that. And even our good mutual friend, Jason Langer, right?
Yes.
Who you used to work with. I mean, he worked at a channel reseller.
Yes.
Selling Pure storage at that time, amongst other things. And even when we were working together a little more closely, he helped me learn a lot about, I throw some messaging in front of him and he'd go, Rob, that's not how partners think. right? Like you're assuming certain things. This is how partners think, right? And so it's just, I think it's super important for people
When
to
you
just
look at
touch
the
different
puzzle
things.
of how you get products to market,
Yeah,
to me, that's a key piece
Yeah.
that helps you kind of make sure you're getting it there effectively. So for me, that was a great, it was great advice, and
That's
actually
awesome.
had a great impact
That's
on my
awesome.
career.
It's great to have good advice from good mentors. Hey, you made it. What do you think?
Great. That's awesome.
Pretty
It's great
fun,
talking
right?
to you. Make it easy, by the way.
I know, that's my job. That's
Definitely
why,
just a conversation.
That's why I'm
right?
here.
Which is
That's
great.
that's what I wanted, and that's what I wanted to get you in here so people could just get some of those perspectives, right? Whether folks have already decided where they're going, or they're still kind of deciding, or they did something temporarily with virtualization that they're going to reevaluate in the next year or two. You hit the message multiple times, right?
Yes.
Is that we have a great foundational story. We need people to think more in terms of elevating data management as part of those decision trees that they're making. And kind of most importantly, we're invested in all these areas, right? We're not playing favorites. We're not ambulance chasing. We're basically saying, look, we're here to help. We have a great solution that's proven over time across multiple of these different options you're considering. How can we help?
Yes, definitely. I think we make it, whether they decide to stay with VMware, we make it better. Or if they decide to basically look at other options and then they're transitioning through that, we make sure that they're covered either way. So I think it's a great opportunity. I'm actually really excited about it.
Yeah, and it's exciting. We'll be at VMware Explore, I think starting August 31st in Las Vegas. Congrats on getting to go to Las Vegas right in the middle of the hottest part of summer, but it looks like a really good program that we've got set up there.
Definitely.
Yeah. Awesome.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you for coming on. This was amazing. If you want to find Ernie, you can reach him on LinkedIn, like all of us, and just reach out. And if you're a former colleague, reach out and say hello. But it was just so cool to bring you on day 12 onto the program. And I know this will help a lot of folks as they're still considering what to do.
Perfect. Thanks, Rob.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for coming on. Thank you out there for listening, for watching this episode of the Pure Report podcast. We couldn't do it without you. Please do share and share with a colleague, tell a friend. And if you're coming out to VMware Explore, set up a customer meeting, come by the booth, say hello. It's a great team that will be there on site, and we hope to see you there. And with that, we will wrap for Everpure, for Ernie China. This is Rob Ludeman saying, don't look back. Something might be gaining on you.